Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel NPA Discovery. Today's story takes us deep into the heart of Hollywood's golden age, into glamour, laughter, ambition, love, and ultimately, devastating loss. We are talking about Carol Lombard, the woman audiences adored as the queen of screwball comedy, and the tragic plane crash that ended her life at just 33 years old. But this video is not just about how Carol Lombard died. It is about why she was on that plane, the choices that led her there, and the lingering question that has haunted Hollywood for decades: could her death have been prevented, and did the man who loved her most unknowingly play a role in it? Before we go any further, let me be very clear. This is not a sensational accusation. It is a historical examination, a human story, and an exploration of how love, urgency, fear, and fate can collide in ways no one intends. And if you enjoy deep, thoughtful stories like this, stories that go beyond headlines and explore the emotional truth behind history, please like this video, share it with someone who loves classic Hollywood, and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep telling these stories with the care and depth they deserve. Now, let's begin. Was Carol Lombard's death just an accident? The title of today's video asks a difficult question: did Clark Gable play a dark role in Carol Lombard's death? My honest answer is this: not deliberately. Not maliciously. But possibly indirectly. History is rarely black and white. Tragedy often grows out of love, not cruelty. And in this case, the evidence suggests something far more heartbreaking than villainy: a chain of human decisions driven by devotion, fear, and timing. To understand that chain, we must first understand who Carol Lombard really was, long before she became Mrs. Clark Gable, and long before she boarded the flight that would seal her fate. Before the spotlight, the girl named Alice Jane Peters. Carol Lombard was born Alice Jane Peters in 1908 into a financially comfortable Midwestern family. Her early life was not one of hardship or desperation, the kind often romanticized in Hollywood success stories, but one of relative stability. That stability shattered when her parents separated in 1914. Her mother, Elizabeth Peters, made a bold decision that would shape Carol's future. She took Alice and her two brothers west to Los Angeles. At the time, Hollywood was still transforming from a dusty experiment into an industry. Few could have predicted that this move would place Alice Jane Peters at the center of American cinema history. As a child, Carol Lombard was not fragile or demure. She was a tomboy in every sense of the word: athletic, competitive, outspoken, and fearless. She excelled in sports, especially baseball, often outplaying boys her age. This detail matters more than it seems. Carol Lombard's screen persona, sharp-tongued, quick-witted, physically expressive, was not an invention. It was an extension of who she already was. She didn't learn confidence in front of a camera. She brought it with her. Discovered by accident, and by attitude. One afternoon, while playing baseball, young Alice caught the attention of film director Alan Dwan. What stood out wasn't her beauty, it was her energy. She was loud, bold, and unapologetically dominant on the field. Dwan gave her a small role in a film when she was just 12 years old. For many child actors, this would have been the beginning of a smooth ascent. For Carol Lombard, it was anything but. The film failed to launch her career. And when she attempted to use it as leverage for auditions, she faced years of rejection. Studios passed her over again and again. Roles went to girls who fit the softer, more traditionally feminine mold Hollywood preferred. This period is crucial to understanding Lombard's psychology. She learned early that Hollywood admiration was conditional. Talent alone was not enough. Success required persistence, reinvention, and resilience. Those lessons hardened her, not cynically, but pragmatically. A near miss with Charlie Chaplin, and a crucial detour. Just as Lombard was on the brink of giving up, fate intervened in an unexpected way. During casting for The Gold Rush, Charlie Chaplin's team noticed her and brought her in for a screen test. She didn't get the role, but that test circulated within the industry. It landed at Biography Studios, where she was encouraged to adopt a new name, Carol Lombard. Still, no contract followed. At 16, Lombard joined Fox Film Corporation, working tirelessly in minor roles. She wasn't yet a star, but she was becoming something else, a fixture. She learned how sets worked, how cameras moved, how performers behaved behind the scenes. Off-screen, she immersed herself in Hollywood's social world. She danced, partied, and became a regular at the Coconut Grove nightclub. Unlike many young actresses, she wasn't scandalized by the industry's excesses, she navigated them with humor and confidence. But when it came to being trusted as a leading lady, studios still hesitated. The scar that nearly ended everything. At 19, Lombard finally found her footing in slapstick comedy with producer Mack Sennett, a giant of silent film comedy. It was a perfect fit. Her physicality, timing, and fearlessness shone. Then disaster struck. In September 1927, Lombard was involved in a serious car accident. The windshield shattered, leaving deep cuts across her face. Blood loss was severe. The recovery was long. And the damage, to a silent film actress whose livelihood depended on close-ups, was potentially career-ending. This moment cannot be overstated. Silent cinema relied heavily on facial expressions. A visible scar could mean permanent unemployment. Lombard sued the driver for damages, citing lost income. But more importantly, she faced an existential fear: what if Hollywood no longer wanted her? Here's where something remarkable happened. Mack Sennett stood by her. He not only kept her under contract, he made her work relentlessly, casting her in 18 short films over 2 years. The goal was simple: keep her visible, sharpen her skills, and shift audience focus from her scar to her charisma. And it worked. They married quickly. On paper, it was a dream union: 2 stars, wealth, prestige. In reality, it was deeply mismatched. Lombard was spontaneous and irreverent. Powell was refined, controlled, and emotionally reserved. She tried to be a traditional wife. He tried to loosen up. Neither succeeded. They divorced after just over 2 years. This marriage taught Lombard a painful lesson: status does not equal happiness. And it set the stage for a much deeper, more complicated love that would change her life forever. A first encounter with Clark Gable, and a warning sign. Shortly after her divorce, Lombard was cast opposite Clark Gable in No Man of Her Own. Their first encounter was not romantic. It was hostile. She resented being loaned out by the studio. He found her abrasive. They clashed openly. Yet even this clash revealed something important: they were equals. Neither was intimidated. Neither backed down. They parted after the film with jokes, not affection, but seeds were planted. Sometimes, the most powerful love stories begin not with attraction, but with resistance. The flight, the warnings, and the night Hollywood went silent. By the time Carol Lombard left Fort Wayne, Indiana, she was exhausted, but proud. The war bond rally had been an overwhelming success. More than $2 million had been raised for the American war effort, an astonishing figure for a single event. Lombard had done exactly what she believed was right. Yet beneath the triumph lay fatigue, urgency, and a quiet emotional pull back toward home. She wanted to return to Clark Gable. Why Carol Lombard was in a hurry? Carol Lombard was not reckless by nature. She was spirited, yes, but also thoughtful, practical, and aware of risk. So why, then, did she insist on flying home instead of taking the train, especially knowing her mother's fear of airplanes? The answer likely lies in emotional urgency, not impatience. At the time, Clark Gable was filming alongside Lana Turner, one of MGM's most glamorous actresses. Hollywood gossip columns buzzed with rumors, many exaggerated, some invented, but none easily ignored. Lombard, despite her confidence, was not immune to anxiety. Her marriage to Gable was deeply affectionate, but it was also fragile, shaped by miscarriages, long separations, and the pressures of stardom. Some close to Lombard later suggested she feared distance more than danger. She wanted to be home. She wanted to be present. She wanted reassurance, not because she doubted Gable's love, but because love itself had taught her how easily happiness could vanish. This context matters. When Lombard pushed for the flight, it was not bravado. It was attachment. Conspiracy theories and government silence. Director Orson Welles later claimed that a government official told him the plane had been shot down by Axis forces and that the truth was covered up. This claim has never been substantiated, and historians largely dismiss it. Still, the rumor persisted. Why? Because war breeds secrecy. And secrecy breeds suspicion. There is no credible evidence that TWA Flight 3 was sabotaged or attacked. But the absence of full transparency during wartime left emotional space for speculation, especially when such a beloved figure was lost. More compelling than conspiracies, however, is a simpler question: should Carol Lombard have been on that plane at all? Clark Gable's guilt. Clark Gable never publicly blamed himself for Lombard's death, but his actions afterward speak volumes. After the United States formally entered World War II, Lombard had encouraged Gable to enlist. Following her death, he did so, but his behavior was troubling. He repeatedly volunteered for dangerous missions. He flew combat flights. He placed himself in harm's way far beyond what was required. Many believe this was not heroism alone, it was penance. Gable had suggested Lombard take part in war bond rallies. He had been the emotional anchor she wanted to return to quickly. Whether or not he consciously felt responsible, guilt seemed to shape his choices. Psychologists refer to this as survivor's guilt, especially when the loss feels tied to one's own influence, however indirect. Gable carried that burden for the rest of his life. The meaning of the tragedy. Carol Lombard's death was not the result of malice. It was not a murder. It was not the consequence of a single person's cruelty. It was the result of human urgency, love, fear, coincidence, and wartime conditions. Clark Gable did not cause her death, but his presence in her life shaped the choices that led her onto that plane. And that nuance matters. History often seeks villains. Real life rarely provides them so neatly. After the silence, guilt, legacy, and the meaning of Carol Lombard's life. When the news of Carol Lombard's death spread across the country, Hollywood seemed to hold its breath. This was not just the loss of a beloved actress. It was the loss of a spirit, one that had carried laughter, warmth, and resilience into millions of homes during some of America's darkest years. In the middle of war, fear, and uncertainty, Carol Lombard had represented joy without bitterness, confidence without cruelty, and humor without malice. And now, she was gone, but perhaps no one felt the weight of that loss more heavily than the man she left behind. Clark Gable. After Carol Lombard. Clark Gable never fully recovered from Carol Lombard's death. Those close to him described a permanent change. The laughter faded. The playful mischief that defined their marriage disappeared. Even his legendary confidence seemed diminished, replaced by restraint and quiet sorrow. In the months following the crash, Gable did something few expected of Hollywood's biggest male star: he enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces. Officially, it was patriotism. Unofficially, many believed it was something else. Gable repeatedly volunteered for dangerous missions. He insisted on flying combat sorties. He placed himself in harm's way with a frequency that alarmed military officials. Some described his behavior as reckless. Others called it brave. But those who understood grief recognized it immediately. This was not recklessness. It was atonement. Whether Clark Gable consciously blamed himself for Carol Lombard's death is impossible to say. He never publicly claimed responsibility. But guilt does not always require logic. It only requires connection. He had suggested the war bond rallies. He had been the reason she wanted to come home quickly. He had been the center of the life she was rushing back to. And that knowledge, fair or not, stayed with him. A love that defined a lifetime. Clark Gable remarried after the war. He continued acting. He maintained his status as a Hollywood icon. But friends and biographers agree on one point without hesitation: Carol Lombard was the love of his life. No later relationship carried the same ease, laughter, or emotional intimacy. Lombard had not tried to change him. She had accepted him, and challenged him, at the same time. She was his equal, his partner, his refuge from the artificiality of fame. When Gable died in 1960, nearly 2 decades after Lombard, his final wish was honored. He was buried beside her. Not beside his last wife. Not beside family. Beside Carol. That decision speaks louder than any interview ever could. Carol Lombard beyond the tragedy. It is easy and deeply unfair to remember Carol Lombard only for how she died. Her death was shocking, tragic, and emotionally devastating. But her life was vibrant, courageous, and impactful in ways that extend far beyond that final flight. She was a pioneer of screwball comedy at a time when women were rarely allowed to be bold, loud, or physically expressive on screen. She reshaped what female comedy looked like: fast, fearless, intelligent, and unapologetic. She survived rejection. She survived a career-threatening injury. She survived heartbreak and loss. She succeeded on her own terms. And when the world entered war, she chose service over safety. That matters. The question of responsibility revisited. So we return, once more, to the question posed at the beginning: did Clark Gable play a dark role in Carol Lombard's death? The honest answer is this: he played a human role. He did not force her onto that plane. He did not intend harm. He did not act with cruelty or negligence. But love has gravity. Urgency has consequences. And timing, once lost, cannot be reclaimed. Carol Lombard's death was not the result of a single decision, it was the culmination of many small, deeply human ones. A desire to help. A desire to come home. A desire to be close to the person you love most. These are not dark impulses. They are the very things that make us human. A broader reflection: love, fate, and choice. Carol Lombard's story forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth: tragedy often emerges not from bad intentions, but from good ones. How many of us have rushed towards something, or someone, because love demanded it? How many of us have ignored fear because hope felt stronger? How many lives have been altered by a coin toss, a delay, a decision made in exhaustion? Her story is not meant to assign blame. It is meant to remind us that life is fragile, and love is powerful enough to shape destiny, for better or worse. Why Carol Lombard still matters. More than 80 years later, Carol Lombard still matters because she represents something rare. A woman who was successful without being hardened. A star who was famous without losing her humor. A patriot who served without being asked. A human being who lived fully, joyfully, and generously. Her life was short, but it was not small. And perhaps that is the most important legacy of all. A final, empowering thought. If there is one lesson Carol Lombard leaves us with, it is this: live boldly but cherish time. Love fiercely but respect fragility. Laugh often but never forget how precious every moment is. We cannot control fate. We cannot rewrite the past. But we can choose how deeply we live while we are here. Carol Lombard did exactly that. And that far more than the tragedy of her death is why she deserves to be remembered. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue telling the stories that deserve to be remembered, not just for how they ended, but for how they lived. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of one another.